Good evening, everyone. We are at EDEX Expert Symposium, second day, third session. We have a very interesting panel with me. Before going for the formal introduction and context of the topic, I'll give you a context for all the audience. Whole DA එක ඉන්න කවුරු හරි ඉන්නවා නම් මේ session එක යන අතරතුර ඇවිල්ලා වාඩි වෙලා බලන්න පුළුවන්. At the same time, we are live streaming outside in front of hall A and B. Whoever is there, if you are free, please feel free to come to hall D and sit and ask questions. At the same time, we have online community which we live stream via Facebook and YouTube. And whoever has any questions, please post your questions on our live stream. We have our social media team in front of me, and you can ask any questions and they will direct the questions to you. At the same time, to maintain the engagement and to address the wider community, we wish to continue the session. We wish to continue the session in both Sinhala and English languages. So I'll start with the topic and let's move into the panel. So today's topic, AI can make you either idiot or a genius. Very controversial topic. Different people might have different opinion regarding the topic as well. So we have few people already there and some people are joining online. And let's see what the expert panel has to say about this. I'll start with the introduction. So we have from my corner, Seninda. So I warmly welcome Seninda Bandara. He serves as the president of Accredited Advertising Agencies Association and also the founder and executive chairman of Boutique Agency Network. And he has experienced more than 18 years in advertising and integrated communication. At the same time, he's a pioneer in introducing data-driven advertising in Sri Lanka. So welcome to EDEX Expo.
Thank you so much.
And next we have Nuwan Senaratna. And he's a computer scientist, an expert in profound knowledge of AI and large-scale systems. And he has experience in working for Meta, Facebook, for 8 years in Menlo Park and London, and focusing on ads engineering teams. Also, he's operating internationally as a founder and consultant for AI startups, also an angel investor. So warmly welcome to EDEX Expo. At the same time, I'm following him on GitHub. If anyone following on GitHub, please fork into his GitHub profile. One of the most interesting GitHub profile I have seen from Sri Lanka. Okay. Next, we have Rohan Jayaweera. He is currently serves as the Principal Analytics Delivery at OCTAVE, John Keells Holdings, and previously served as Country Head of Google for Sri Lanka and Maldives. And we call him Google Man of Sri Lanka. And highly skilled engineer with vast experience in data and advanced analytics. And warm welcome to you. Oh. Wife calls. Apologies. Yes. She's actually just came here. So we can move to round number 1, where we can do the understanding on the landscape of AI application and reality check. So I'm putting a common question to all the panelists. This is regarding all AI applications. So same questions. 3 of you can give different answers or same answers. We can debate. So this is about all AI hype. If you really look at most of the corporate presentations and different business domains, they want to integrate AI at any process or any business domain. I have seen some of the times the senior leaders, even in the CEOs, even though they don't have any understanding on how AI works, they want to integrate AI in their presentation. So those comments can come in this context. Sometimes can be a hype, at the same time can be a bubble as well. So the question is, if it is really actually a trend or a bubble, or if it is really a transformation initiative which is going to change people's life and the business domains. You can start.
Thank you, Dehan, and pleasure to be here. So I think, loaded question. From my side, I think the excitement by everyone to incorporate AI into this I consider that as a positive. The reason why I think it's a positive thing is that kind of gets people more aware, people want to pay attention. And very recently also someone asked me the question and I said, I think eventually what's going to happen is the winners and the people who created value will stay. Others will little by little fade away, and market will stabilize itself. I don't think in my mind the bubble is the concept that I will use, but is it overhyped? Absolutely. And I think right now people just want to do things, and I think that's a very interesting scientific graph also. Right now the expectations of people is definitely far exceeds what the technology is capable of delivering. But I think eventually these lines will cross, and I think there more applications will start happening, and what's going to happen is that there will be more things that the technology will deliver than what people expect. We are not there yet. I think we are in that first phase. Our expectations are just overwhelmingly high compared to what the technology is really capable of delivering on the ground.
So I don't think it's a short-term trend. I think this is this very long story where we are just at the introduction. We haven't even got to chapter 1. But I'll make 2 caveats to that. One caveat is, with all revolutions, you don't know how it's going to end. I'll give you an example. So we talk about Web 1, Web 2, Web 3. Now it's supposed to be Web 3, but with Web 1 and Web 2, at the beginning, people were saying completely different things in terms of what ended up. So AI is just the same thing. So that's the first caveat. The second caveat is these revolutions are not straight lines. So there are ups and downs. So a lot of people say that we are about to get to a down where Rohan mentioned bubble, or you also mentioned bubble, where the bubble bursts. I feel that that's fairly likely, where a lot of champions at the moment, like I think OpenAI is the top candidate, are in very precarious situations in terms of their finances and things like that. So what people are saying inside the company is very different from what people see from outside the company. So I think it's going to be a very bumpy ride. But like I said, we are just only getting started. I don't think we have even seen 1% of the possibilities.
Well, first of all, pleasure having you. So I think I do agree with both Rohan and Nuwan on that. But in a way, like what I see, like predominantly, when I look at it from a industry perspective as well as from a human perspective, I think, especially with OpenAI, when OpenAI became more, they created something, a tool that even a child can use. So where they enabled AI with everyone, literally in the world. So that, in fact, made lots of changes. I think it's like, the way how I look at it is, it's like in the human evolution where whoever who found fire, from that moment, everything changed. As is all AI, get into the human hand. Like anyone can access AI, and then anyone can deep dive, learn, do whatever with it. So that, in fact, I think has changed perspectives of a lot of things. And that, I believe, while, in that whole Gartner hype cycle, we still see that, generative AI, I think according to them, they say like in few years, it will become a plateau. So which means that generative AI is going to be something like having a television in every household. So it's common, there's nothing, no wow of that. But I think what happens next is going to be the most interesting thing. I think that is where industries are trying to invest a lot in AI, even including my own industry, predominantly advertising. And today's age, I think if you look at the whole global scenario, like big multinationals, advertising is predominantly about creativity and reaching people. But now the biggest tool or the asset what they are looking at is also AI. How big AI, or how much big potential that they have with AI. So I believe while there's a trend, this trend will always there, but the technology will keep on evolve by itself. So that's what I see as a revolution.
I think I agree with all the statements I have seen when it comes to AGI and SCI comes into play, how people mindset has to be changed. Already people are discussing about those, and people have seen some of the technologies already getting into AGI also. So my next question, I think I'll forward it to Nuwan. This is again purely based on my personal experience. So when we are interviewing some of the undergraduates or recent graduates, අපි මොකක් හරි ප්‍රශ්නයක් දෙනවා, like, okay, this is a problem. They are struggling to solve the problem because what we usually do, we give a piece of paper or a pen or pencil. හරි විනාඩි 5ක් ගන්න, ඔයා මේක solve කරනවා නම් කොහොමද solve කරන්නේ? But how, when you ask in those questions, we have seen they are struggling to keep on logical thinking, because most of the time when you asking them, what they do is, whenever there's a problem, they just put on ChatGPT, look at the answer, copy paste or reword and put it there. When it comes to these technologies comes into play, what are the impacts going to happen on the critical thinking of the people?
Yeah, so humans and chimpanzees, we share 99% of our genes, right? The only difference is that we make tools, right? So AI is the latest tool, right? And so with any tool, it's an exchange of skills. We gain new skills, but we also lose old skills. Like, for example, when we found fire, we lost the ability to eat raw meat, right? Chimpanzees can eat raw meat. But we also gained agriculture and civilization as a result of that, right? So I think the question is, like, we shouldn't ask the question, are we going to lose skills? Because we are definitely going to lose skills. The question we are going to ask is that exchange a profit or a loss? So I am not super worried about critical thinking, because for me, critical thinking is a little bit like manual labor, right? Manual laborers are slaves to physics. Critical thinkers are slaves to logic, right? And I feel like just as we mechanized a lot of boring physical things, we should mechanize a lot of boring mental things and make use of the time that saves. And for me, that is using that time more for creative thinking as opposed to critical thinking. So for me, like, a genius is someone who is really good at creative thinking, not critical thinking. So if you think of Einstein thought of physics in a completely different way. That is not critical thinking, that is creative thinking, right? So I don't think we should try to beat AI at what it's really good at, because it's not possible. It's so big, it has so much data, it has so much energy behind it. We can't beat AI at critical thinking. So forcing, say, students, for example, that you need to do critical thinking is like forcing students to do manual labor. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. We should focus on creativity, which unfortunately our education system doesn't focus on. I'll just give one example. You mentioned giving a paper and asking the students to solve the problem. So I interview software engineers all the time, and in the old days, we used to say, okay, solve this coding problem. Now I've actually flipped that. I ask a software engineer, you ask me a problem, because that's actually a lot more useful at getting signal as opposed to whether they can think in a creative way. Anyway, that's contrarian opinion, but I think that's why I am on this.
Okay, thank you, Nuwan. Since you brought up on creativity piece, which is actually my next question to Seninda also. Seninda, since you are working in advertising agency and advertising domain, so my experience, again, every time I'm trying to connect with my experience, then we can relate it more. So when I'm on TikTok, when I'm on scrolling down, I see a lot of AI generated content. Sometimes we can't even imagine make AI then at the hitagan not bad. Like, so I can remember one video for Alla Bridge. කවුරු එක්කනේ දාලා තිබ්බ වීඩියෝ එකක්. ඒකේ ලයිට් තියෙනවා කියලා. A lot of foreigners has gone there to see මේක ඇත්තටම Alla Bridge එකේ lights තියෙනවද කියලා බලන්න. Because people can't figure it out. And connecting to creativity, and with meta prompting comes into play. මම මුකුත් creativity skill එකක් නැහැ. මම AI එකෙන් අහනවා මට මේකට හරියන prompt එකක් දෙන්න. ඒකෙම මම copy කරලා VO3 දාලා මම video generate. So how that's going to impact on creativity and your industry and domain?
Well, I think, of course, we have now seen the impact of the waves already, like, it's on our side now. We have seen things which are happening. But I think in terms of creative thinking, there was a nice advertisement which, I don't remember who exactly did the ad, but in 2001, I think, in 2001, Microsoft did one of the ads. The ad had, like, it was a print kind of, like a poster kind of an ad, like to a magazine. ඒ ad එකේ මැද තියෙන්නේ පැන්සලක් දාලා ඒකේ line එකේ තියෙන්නේ the man who invented the computer didn't think of the computer in front of it, because he has to think it somewhere else. So I think it's because his creative thinking. whoever, like it's not one, but like obviously, the creative thinking, the way it's, as I think even one mentioned earlier, critical thinking is like a process kind of thinking. How do you get people to think, and like it's more manual kind of a work. But creativity and creative thinking is the most important thing. Like even, as you said, like you can just go and type something. You can put a prompt. But the thing is, like when it comes to real advertising, now very recently, last December, Coca-Cola did one of their seasonal communications, global seasonal ad in AI. And that was the second ad. Before that, last year also, they did one ad. That was the first fully AI-generated commercial they developed. And they got like blasted from the creative community across the world. Everyone was like saying, "Eke inna pola beya hari na, meka na, araka na, truck eka mehema neme." But what happened was like they anyway, like a company like Coca-Cola, they evaluate the ads, then they evaluate that against the performance using sales or so many other parameters. So they have figured, like according to a research company, they have identified that ad was one of the most effective ad in terms of certain parameters. It has worked. So therefore they continued. මේ අවුරුද්දදී එහෙම ලොකුවට ඒකට කවුරුත් complain කරේ නැහැ. හැබැයි what I heard was, I mean, I don't have any validated information on this, but what I heard from the creative community is that they have used 17,000 prompts to develop that ad. Imagine 17,000 prompts. So you need to think of camera angles. You need to know like මේකට දාන්න ඕනේ මොන lens එකද. ඒක කරද්දි නැත්නම් අපිට ලියන්න බෑනේ. If not, you will be able to develop something, and that might suit your work. But when it comes to the real advertising work, still we believe human thinking and creativity still matters. Because the more that you know, because the most powerful thing in advertising is actually not the idea, it's the insight. The insight is something that you can't really gather from a textbook. No matter how much that, whether you have a PhD in advertising, you can't really get the real insight out of it. Because the insights are there in the society. Like, you'll be able to find insights here. හැබැයි අර advertising කරන කට්ටිය insight එක හොයාගන්නේ මිනිස්සුන්ගේ behavior සහ ඒක ඇතුලේ. What they say is insights are there, but you don't see that. But even AI won't be able to give you the insight, because what AI can give you is something which is there already right now. But certain things that you need to read, you need to observe people and you need to live with people. Then only in this particular industry, especially, still things happens with that. So for you to like generate something, you need to have, one, the subject knowledge. Number two is that you need to have little bit of knowledge about everything. Otherwise, it's little difficult.
Thank you, Seninda. For the first round, last question, I'm moving to Rohan again from the business point of view. Because we have a wide area, we work with different industries as EDEX committee. Now, when it comes to businesses, Sri Lankan context again, when AI or any other new technology comes into play, usually they are backward. Okay, they take some time to observe and learn. That in a way it can be a good thing also. හැබැයි දැන් හිතන්න AI වගේක් එද්දී if they don't have a data driven culture inside the organization, හිතන්න AI කියන්නේ ගොඩක් පස්සේ කරන එක. ඊට කලින් data දිහා බලලා quality data නැත්තම් garbage in garbage out, ඒ වගේ data driven culture එකක් නැත්තම් how our business can transform into AI, and what are the challenges and how they can mitigate if they don't have a proper data driven culture?
I need AI to auto switch on. Great question. So I think the way that you want to think about this is, why aren't businesses as able to? I have a slightly long answer, so please bear with me. If you look at the 1930s, 40s, the S&P 500, right? There's a classic example of these. The companies that were entering into S&P 500, which is like the best performing companies, had an average age of 75 plus years. Today, that have been reduced to about 10, 30. Now, he took Coca-Cola, right? When we were growing up, every marketing, most valuable brands, all of that was about Coca-Cola. It's not even in the top best brands today, right? What does that mean? there is, like most of the kids who are coming around to EDEX today will work for companies that is not yet invented in another 10 years' time, right? So what's going to happen in answering your specific question, why is backward and etc., is that today there's an overly reliance of something called experience and so many other things to give us guidance. This is the way the world used to work, and if we do this, this will work, and this is what we should do, comes from my years of having done that. But with the rapid change, the word I will use is violently changing world, this no longer holds truth. And the organization that I have decided that had said, yes, we need experience and whatever, but we also need another layer of capability that can give us much more insights to make actions on. And I think organizations who have realized that have started to invest on what I would call is the first thing, the data-driven cultures. Now, I have been part of a lot of these use cases where, machine learning and all of that have been deployed. 30-40% of the problem is technology. The rest of it is about who owns it, how do we have to change people. Some people immediately no, the same thing, like very dismissive, right? And I think why coming back to your question, I mean, because you loaded answer here, but I think is that today organizations will start realizing that it is becoming an absolute essential element to stay relevant and stay competitive as time goes by. And some of the people who are laggards might reduce market share, might lose whatever, and then maybe they will turn around. The guys who get into this game, and I think this is a great opportunity for small and medium-sized and startup companies who build this, will have an edge over a period of time. So that's the way I really think about, what's going to happen in the next couple of years. Now, this is where I want to throw a bit of a recognition for John Keells Holdings, 150-year-old, very traditional businesses, etc. I mean, if you look at the best talent right now for AI, I would argue and say it's at OCTAVE, right? It's an entity that is 6 years ago, the group has, invested heavily over the pandemic era, whatever. They kept that investment, and today, some of the work we are doing is really transforming the organization that is 150 years old. And I think organization need to do that. What is really lacking is the leadership doesn't have the conviction and that commitment and capability recognition to be able to make a change in organization, and that's where the delay is.
Thank you. I think in terms of talent, I can vouch for OCTAVE because we closely work for a few use cases together. So I can clearly vouch for it. So we are moving to Seninda. Seninda make a skills and competency පැත්තෙන් දැන් අපි කලින් දැනගත්ත දැන් prompts 19000ක් Coca-Cola එක පාවිච්චි කරා. දැන් මෙහෙම අපි වැඩිපුර prompt පාවිච්චි කරන වැඩිපුර මිනිස්සු AI එකට ලං වෙන්න AI එකත් එක්ක තියෙන බැඳීම හින්දා AI එකත් එක්ක තියෙන රිලේෂන්ෂිප් එක කොයි වගේ වෙනස් වෙයිද ඇඩ්වර්ටයිසිං ඒජන්සි එක. ඒක අපි වැඩිපුර AI එකත් එක්ක තියෙන හින්දා අපි ඒකට වහල් වෙලා එයා විශ්වාස කරන්න ගනීද? එහෙම නැත්නම් හිතන්න ඔයාගාව ක්‍රියේටිව් ඩිසයිනර් කෙනෙක් ඉන්නවා, AI කෙනෙක් ඉන්නවා. දැන් AI එක ගොඩක් ඉන්ටෙලිජන්ට් වෙලා තියෙනවා. මොකද ක්‍රිටිකල් තින්කින් ක්‍රියේටිවිටිත් ඉම්ප්‍රූව් වෙලා තියෙනවා. අපි ගොඩක් පාවිච්චි කරන්. එහෙම වුණා මේක මිනිස්සු වහල් වෙයිද මේ ඇඩ්වර්ටයිසිං ඩොමේන් එකේ? එහෙම නැත්නම් ඒක උගලන් ඔල්රෙඩි ස්ට්‍රැටජි එක අයිඩෙන්ටිෆයි කරලා තියෙනවද AI කොහොමද ලංකාවේ කන්ටෙක්ස්ට් එකේදී පාවිච්චි කරන්න ඕනේ?
ඔඩ යන්නේ ඒකේ මේ මොකද ටිකක් විහිළුවක් වගේ දෙයක්ත් තියෙනවා. මම පොඩි එක්සැම්පල් එකක් දෙන්න ළඟදී. මට මතක නැහැ මේක ලංකාවේ වෙච්ච එකක්ද පිට රටකද කියලා. මේක මේ නිවුස් පේපර් එකක් print කරලා ඒකේ මම දැක්ක ඉමේජ් එක නිවුස් පේපර් එකේ යටින් තියෙනවා අර chat GPT එකේ එන්නේ අර අන්තිම කෑල්ල අපි මේ විදිහට තව ඕනනම් modify කරලා දෙන්නම් කියලා. අර පත්තරේ එංගලන්ත නිවුස් පේපර්. මේක තමයි ප්‍රශ්නේ. ඉතින් ඒ කියන්නේ අරක තමයි අපේ ටොපික් එක තමයි. ඉතින් මේ කියන ඉඩියට් or a genius ඒක අපි යූස් කරන විදියනේ. ඉතින් මම හිතන්නේ ඒක සරල දෙයක්. chat GPT පාවිච්චි කරන්න පුළුවන්. පාවිච්චි කරන්න ඕනේ. හැබැයි ඒක පාවිච්චි කරා කියලා අපි අපේ ජොබ් එක කරනකොට දැනගන්න ඕනේ මේක හරිද කියන එක. ඉතින් හිතන්න පත්තරයක් එළියට එනකොට ඒකට පත්තරේ කොච්චර පිරිසක් ඉන්නවද ඒකේ අප්‍රූවල් එකක් දෙන්න. ඉතින් ඒකම තමයි මම හිතන්නේ දැන් කාලයකට කලින් මීඩියාවල දැන් උදාහරණයක් ඇටියට අද කාලේ වෙනකොට නම් ඒක සම්පූර්ණයෙන්ම වෙනස්. නමුත් කියන්නේ මම ඇඩ්වර්ටයිසින් පටන් ගන්නකොටත් ඒක යම් ආකාරයකට වෙනස්. මම ඊටත් කලින් කරපු කට්ටිය උදාහරණයක් හැටියට ටීවී එකේ ඇඩ් එකක් දාගන්නවයි කියන එක නිකන් ලේසි දෙයක් නෙමෙයි. මොකද ඒක ටීවී ස්ටේෂන් එකේ අප්‍රූව් කරන්න ඕනේ ඇඩ් එක දාන්න. ඒගොල්ලන්ට තියෙන වෙනම ගයිඩ්ලයින්ස්. ඉතින් මම දැන් එහෙම ඒවා නම් මම දැකලා නැහැ. නමුත් දැන් අපිට අද හදලා අදම ඒක සෝෂල් මීඩියා එකට අප්ලෝඩ් කරන්න පුළුවන්. ඒක මිනිස්සු දකිනවා TikTok එකට දැම්මා මිනිස්සු අපිට මිලියන ගාණක් views ගන්න පුළුවන්. හැබැයි අර එතනදී වෙන දේ තමයි මේ again AI තියෙන එක ඊටාම හොඳයි සහ ඊටාම අපේ ෆාස්ට් අපි මේ ගිය අවුරුදු දෙක ඇතුළතදී අපිම දැකලා තියෙනවනේ අපි කොච්චරක් පර්සනලි ඉන්ඩිවිජුවලි අපි කොච්චර ට්‍රාන්ස්ෆෝම් වෙලාද කියන එක. ඉතින් මේක මම හිතන්නේ ඉන්ඩස්ට්‍රි එකක් හැටියටත් එකක් විශේෂයෙන්ම ලංකාවේ ඇඩ්වර්ටයිසිං ඉන්ඩස්ට්‍රි එකේත් අපි දකිනවා දැන් ඒ කාලේ මේකේ පැති දෙකක් තියෙන උදාහරණයක් හැටියට ඉස්සර කමර්ෂල් එකක් අපි ක්ලයන්ට් කෙනෙක්ට පෙන්නන්න යනකොට ඒ කමර්ෂල් එක වෙන්නේ මෙහෙමයි කියලා. ඉතින් ඒකේ ඉන්නවා ඒ කාලේ ක්ලයන්ට් කෙනෙක්ට ඒක අර කොපිරයිටර් හරි ඒක ලියන ක්‍රියේටිව් ඩිරෙක්ටර් ආවිල්ලා ලස්සනට කියනවා. මේක වෙන්නේ මෙහෙමයි මෙහෙම වෙලා මෙහෙම වෙනවා. ඉතින් යාට පුළුවන් වෙනවා. ඊටාම ලංකාවේ දක්ෂ ක්‍රියේටිව් ඩිරෙක්ටර්ස්ලා හිටියා. අපි 80 ගණන් වලින් පස්සේ 90 2000 එහෙම දැක්කේ ඇඩ්ස් වල තාම අපිට මතක තියෙන ඇඩ්ස් වල ඒගොල්ලන් මේ ක්ලයන්ට්ස්ලාට මේ ඇඩ් එක විකුණන්නේ කතාවෙන්. ඒතර ක්ලයන්ට්ගේ ඉමේජිනේෂන් එකෙන් තමයි ඒක යන්නේ. හැබැයි ඒක ප්‍රොඩක්ෂන් එකකට යන්න කලින් මේගොල්ලන් ඉන්නවා ලංකාවේ හිටියා ඒ කාලෙත් ස්ටෝරි බෝඩ් එක අඳින පිරිසක්. ඒගොල්ලන් අඳිනවා ෆ්‍රේම් එකෙන් ෆ්‍රේම් එක මෙහෙමයි කියලා ස්ටෝරි බෝඩ්ස් අඳිනවා. ඉතින් මේ ඔක්කොම process එක සාමාන්‍යයෙන් ඇඩ් එකක් එළියට ගන්න ක්ලයන්ට් කෙනෙක්ට බ්‍රීෆ් කරලා ප්‍රසන්ට් කරලා ඔක්කොම කරන්නේ ලොකු කාලයක මාසෙක විතර process එකක්. ඉතින් දැන් එහෙම නෑ. දැන් ස්ටෝරි බෝඩ් එකට ඒකට හදපු වෙනම AI තියෙනවා. ඉතින් ඒජන්සීස් මං හිතන්නේ මල්ටිනේෂනල්ස් වෙනම තම තමන්ගේම ඒ කියන්නේ ඕපන් AI හරි ඒක නැත්තම් Google හරි පාවිච්චි කරලා ඒගොල්ලන්ගේම AI හදාගෙන තියාගන්නවා තමන්ගේ ඒකෙන් තමයි ඒගොල්ලන් දැන් ඩිෆරෙන්ෂিয়েට් කරන්නේ ලෝකේ තියෙන බහුජාතික සමාගම් දෙකක් එක්ක. එතකොට ඒකේ විදිහට ස්ටෝරි බෝඩ් එකේ ඉඳලා ප්‍රොඩක්ෂන් එකට වෙනකම්ම ඔටෝමේට් කරලා මේ ඇඩ්වර්ටයිසිං කියන සමස්ත process එකම ඔටෝමේට් කරන්නේ කොහොමද කියන එකේ කතන්දරයක් යනවා. හැබැයි ඒක ඇතුලේ ලංකාවට අපි බලනකොට මම හිතනවා අපි තාමත් ගොඩාක් තැන්වලදී ගොඩාක් පිටිපස්සෙන් ඉන්නේ මේ ප්‍රොඩක්ෂන් වලට AI යූස් කරන එක සහ ක්‍රියේටිව් කරන්න කන්ටෙන්ට් කරන්න දැන්ට තියෙන AI tools පාවිච්චි කරලා කරන එක යම් තාක් දුරකට අපේ රටේ අපි දකිනවා ඒක තියෙනවා ඊටාම හොඳ තැනක. හැබැයි ඇත්තටම AI වලින් ගන්න ඕන දේවල් උදාහරණයක් හැටියට දැන් අපි like even රොහන් කතා කරපු organizational පැත්තෙන් AI යූස් කරන තැනට තාමත් AI භාවිතා කරලා මේ මාකටිං ෆන්ක්ෂන් එක ඔටෝමේට් කරන්නේ කොහොමද කියන එක නැත්තම් මේ අපි කතා කරන මේකට ඕන වෙන මේ data හරියට ගෙනල්ලා ඒ data වලින් කොහොමද මේ මාකටිං ෆන්ක්ෂන් එක පර්සනලයිස් කරන්නේ වගේ දේවල් තාමත් ඊටාම ස්ලෝ තමයි අපේ රටේ වෙන්නේ. හැබැයි අර ක්‍රියේටිව් ඩෙවලොප් කරන එක වගේ කාරණාවන් ඒවා ඊටාම ඒක ඊටා හොඳයි. ඉතින් කාතකට දැන් ඉස්සර කාලේ වගේ නෙමෙයි ඉස්සර කාලේ ඒ ගත්ත මහන්සිය දැන් යන්නේ නැහනේ. දැන් කමර්ෂල් එක හදන්න අපි ක්ලයන්ට් ගාවට ගිහිල්ලා කමර්ෂල් එකේ රෆ් කට් එක පෙන්වන්නේ AI වලින්. එතකොට ඉතින් සමහරක් වෙලාවට කියනවා නෑ නම් ප්‍රොඩක්ෂන් එකක් ඕනේ නෑ මේකම කරමු කියන තැනටත් එනවා. ඉතින් ඒක සහ ඉතින් ඔඩියෝ එකට ගන්න ඕන තරම් දේවල් තියෙනවා. ඉතින් මේක දැනට මේ ක්‍රියේටිව් process එක යම් ලෙවල් එකකට කරනවා. හැබැයි අර කොකාකෝලා වුණා සීසනල් ඇඩ් එක AI කරලා හැබැයි තව ඇඩ් එකක් ඒගොල්ලන් human production එකකුත් ගෙනාවා. මොකද තාමත් මේ අර human touch එක කියන එකත් යම් තැනකදී අපිට අවශ්‍ය වෙනවා මිනිස්සුත් එක්ක engage වෙද්දි. ස්පෙෂලි මං හිතනවා ක්‍රියේටිව්ස් වලදී දැන් මෑතකදී ආපු ෆිල්ම්ස් වල වුණත් දැන් අවට වගේ ලොකු massive production එකක් ඒකේ human touch එක හින්දානේ මිනිස්සු තාමත් කනෙක්ට් වෙන්නේ. මම දන්නේ මේ පාර box office ද නැද්ද කියලා. හැබැයි මොනවා වුණත් ඒ තියෙන එක මං හිතනවා තාමත් important. ඉතින් ඇඩ් ඉන්ඩස්ට්‍රි එකේදීත් සෑහෙන්න මේ ලංකාව එතරම් නැති වුණත් ග්ලෝබලි සෑහෙන්න මේ AI ගැන ගොඩක් රිසර්ච් ඩෙවලොප්මන්ට් සෑහෙන්න වේගෙන යනවා.
thank you Seninda. ඒකත් එක්ක මම රොහන් යමු වෙන වෙනස් ගැටලුවක් ඇත්තටම. දැන් අපේ මේ සෙක්ෂන් එක ගත්තොත් හෝල්ඩි සෙක්ෂන් එක ගත්තොත් මේක ඇත්තටම කොටස් 3ක් තියෙනවා. මේ පැත්ත පටන් ගද්දී job opportunities internship and job opportunities මේ area එක skill development ඊට පස්සේ මගේ දකුණු පැත්තෙන් entrepreneurship and innovation. දැන් මේ AI hype පැත්ත එක AI development උත් එක්ක අපි රොහන්ගෙන් ඇහුවොත් ඇත්තට මේක ක්වෙස්චන් එකේ කැලි දෙකක් තියෙනවා. එකක් data science and analytics පැත්තෙන් undergraduate කෙනෙක් හරි recent graduate කෙනෙක් හරි කැම්පස් එකෙන් එළියට එනවනම් එයාට මොනවද තියෙන රැකියා අවස්ථා එයා දැනට ඉගෙන ගන්න data science and analytics පැත්තේ ඉන්න. අනිත් පැත්තේ මම ඉගෙනගෙන ඉවරලා මම entrepreneur කෙනෙක් වෙන්න ආස නම් මම කොහොමද AI පාවිච්චි කරලා අලුතින් business model එකක් හදන්නේ? ඉතින් ප්‍රශ්නේ කොටස් දෙකක් තියෙනවා. මොකද හේතුව අපි මේ EDEX එකට ගොඩක් එන්නේ ඒ ඩොමේන් එකේ කට්ටිය. ඉතින් ඒගොල්ලන්ට ගොඩක් ඒ ප්‍රශ්න දෙකම තියෙනවා. ඒ තමයි ප්‍රශ්නේ.
ඔයගේ පළවෙනි ප්‍රශ්නෙට උත්තරයක් දෙනවා නම් දැන් මම කල්පනා කරලා බැලුවොත් එහෙම ලංකාවේ වුණත් වැඩියම ලෝකයේ පහුගිය අවුරුදු 5 හරි ගත්තොත් එහෙම වැඩියම ඩිමාන්ඩ් එකක් තියෙන රස්සාවල් මොනවාද කියලා බැලුවොත් එහෙම ඔය data analytics, data engineering, data science, business intelligence ඔය sections 4-5 තමයි මං හිතන්නේ පළවෙනි උඩම තිබ්බ 10 නැත්නම් very specialization මේ jobs නැතු අරුණාම හිතන්නේ දැන් අද ලංකාවේ මාකට් එක ගත්තොත් ලංකාවේ businesses ගත්තොත් leadership එකකින්ම හැම board එකකින්ම chief AI officer හරි chief digital officer හරි එහෙම කියලා designations create කරලා මේ designations අවුරුදු 5කට කලින් තිබෙනවා create කරලා ඉවරලා they are hiring data scientists, they are hiring data engineers, they are hiring you know අපේ දැන් ඔය කතා කරන AI කියන umbrella term එක යටතේ තියෙන capabilities වලට මම හිතන්නේ job opportunities create on. So answering your question right now අපි හොඳම දේ කරන්න ඕන කල්පනා කරලා බලන්න ඕන ලංකාවේ universities වල මේ area එකට දෙන degree ප්‍රමාණය right. දැන් පහුගිය අවුරුදු 5කට කලින් මම හිතන්නේ Coursera හරි Udemy හරි course එකක් කරුණාම AI data science වලට කිසිම දෙයක් තිබ්බේ නැහැ. අද ලංකාවේ තියෙන හැම local university එකක්ම හැම මේ private university එකක්ම මේක තියෙනවා. ඒ කියන්නේ now the demand is there. So I think next 5-10 years ඉතිරි අවුරුදු 5-10 ඇතුළත මේක අනිවාර්යයෙන්ම ඉස්සරහට තියෙයි. So answering වාගේ question එක පළවෙනි part එක මම හිතන්නේ දැන් තමයි ඇත්තටම තියෙන හොඳම කාලය. saturation point එක තාම achieve වෙලා නැහැ. මේ data science capability එක මං හිතන්නෙත් නෑ saturation point එක තව හුඟ කාලයක් යනකම් එයි කියලා. මොකද AI වැඩියෙන් මේ මිනිස්සු ඉගෙන ගන්න ළමයි ඉගෙන ගන්න මේක applications ප්‍රමාණයත් වැඩි වෙනවා. ඒ කියන්නේ demand එක අර electricity වගේ electricity produce කරපු නිසා demand එකක් ඇති වුණා. දැන් කලින් හිතපු නැති. ඒක නිසා දැන් more electricity is needed. I think that's the cycle we are going to take. Answering your question about the entrepreneurship, I think මට දෙන්න පුළුවන් එකම advice එක තමයි you have to start early and experiment, right? Just because you use AI පාවිච්චි කරා කියලා entrepreneur කෙනෙක් හැටියට successful වෙනවා කියන එක guarantee කරන්නත් බෑ. හැබැයි AI පාවිච්චි කරන කෙනෙකුට entrepreneur කෙනෙක් හැටියට වැඩිපුර success ගන්න opportunity එකක් possibility එකක් තියෙන්න පුළුවන්. මොකෝ ලොකු skill set knowledge capability gap එකක් එයාට address කරන්න පුළුවන්. ඒ capability එක එයා ගේන නිසා ඒ මේ entrepreneurship එකට. ඉතින් entrepreneurship කියන්නේ business model එක ගැන එහෙම කියන පොඩක් broad වැඩි කතා කරන මොකෝ එයාගේ අදහස අනුව එයා කරන්න යන solve කරන්න ප්‍රශ්න අනුව business model එක වෙනස් වෙන්න පුළුවන්. හැබැයි මම නම් කියන දැන් මගේ පුතු දෙන්න දැන් මම දැම්ම ඉඳලම ඒගොල්ලන්ට AI usage එකට මේ training හරි ඔය මොකක් හරි course එකක් හරි දාලා ඉවරලා අනිවාර්යයෙන්ම මේව කරනවා. මොකද people learning how to use AI for the improvement of their productivity, quality and the thinking, I think is not going to be it's going to be an absolute necessity, not optional in time to come. That's my answer.
I think mama ඊයේ session එකේ කතා කරපේට connect කරන දනිකන් තුෂේර කියපියත් තමයි going forward tool එකට love කරන්න නැතුව problem එකට love කරන්න. Going forward that was their message. අපි problem එක solve කරන්න ඉගෙන ගන්න ඕනේ more than the tool. Thanks for that opinion. Then Nuwan Facebook එකේ අවුරුදු ගාණක් වැඩ කරලා එක රටවල් වල විදේශයක talent එක දැකලා තියෙන ඒගොල්ලෝ skills මොනවද තියෙන්නේ කියලා. දැන් ඉන්දියාව වගේ රටක් ගත්තොත් ඉන්දියාව දැනට digital ලෝකේ ගොඩක් top positions වල Indiansලා ඉන්නේ. Google Microsoft ගත්තත් Indiansලා ඉන්නේ. AI පැත්තෙන් ගත්තොත් ගොඩක් innovations වලට Indiansලා ඉන්නවලා තියෙනවා. ඒ වගේ competitive market එකක් එක්ක ලංකාව වගේ රටක ස්කිල් එක කොහොමද අපි මැච් කරන්න ඕනේ? ඔයාගේ එක්ස්පීරියන්ස් එකත් එක්ක මොන වගේ ස්කිල් ગેප් එකක්ද අපි එලිමිනේට් කරන්න ඕනේ මේ AI ග්ලෝබල් කම්පිටිෂන් එකත් එක්ක ෆිට වෙන්න?
ගෝලීය මට්ටමකින් තනක කරන්නම් ක්‍රම දෙකක් තියෙනවා. මම කියන්නේ AI ශාස්ත්‍රයේ ක්‍රම දෙකක් තියෙනවා. ඒක ක්‍රමයක් තමයි බලශක්තියයි දත්තයි දාලා මහා පරිමාණ මේ AI ආකෘති හදන එක, AI මොඩල්ස් හදන එක. ඒක තමයි එක ක්‍රමයක්. ඒක තමයි Google, Facebook, Meta, Amazon ඔක්කොම කරන්නේ ඒක. ඒගොල්ලන්ට ඒක කරන්න තියෙන මේ සම්පත් තියෙනවා. දැන් මේ දවස්වල OpenAI, Google, Meta, Amazon ඔක්කොමලා මේ data centers හදනවා. ඒ data center එකක මේ විදුලි පරිභෝජනය ගිගාවට් 10ක් වගේ. ඒක සසඳලා බැලුවොත් ලංකාවේ maximum මේ දවස්වල maximum විදුලි පරිභෝජනය මේ ගිගාවට් 2.5ක් වගේ. එකෙන් කාලයි. ඉතින් අපිට ඒ පරිමාණයෙන් කම්පීට් කරන්න අමාරුයි. ඉතින් අපි අනිවාර්යෙන් දෙවෙනි ක්‍රමය යොදා ගන්නවා. දෙවෙනි ක්‍රමය තමයි AI වුණත් වෙනත් තාක්ෂණ වුණත් එක මේ කුඩා මේ අපි ඉංග්‍රීසියෙන් කියනවා නීෂස් වල නීෂස් හොයාගෙන ඒවල යම් එක්ස්පර්ටිස් එකක් හොයාගෙන. දැන් මේක අලුත් දෙයක් නෙමෙයි. දැන් අපේ ටෙක් ඉන්ඩස්ට්‍රි එක ගත්තොත් දැන් දිගටම අවුරුදු 40ක් විතර ඉන්දියාවේ හිටියා. ඉන්දියාවේ පරිමාණයෙන් අපිට මේ කම්පීට් කරන්න බෑ. ඉතින් ප්‍රමාණාත්මක පරිමාණයෙන් කම්පීට් කරන්න බෑ. දැන් මිලේනියම් IT වගේ කම්පැනියක් ගත්තොත් ඒගොල්ලන් කරේ අර නීෂ් එක හොයාගත්තා ඉලෙක්ට්‍රොනික ස්ටොක් එක්ස්චේන්ජර්ස් හදන්න. ඒ වගේ AI වලටත් අපි හොයාගන්න ඕනේ මේ නීෂස් මොනවද කියලා. මම උදාහරණයක් දෙන්න. මම හිතන්නේ සාමාන්‍යයෙන් අපි හරියටම දන්නේ මොනවද AI නීෂස් කියන්නේ කියලා. මම උදාහරණයක් දෙන්න. මම LLMs හදන එක සමාගමක් එක්කවත් වැඩ කරන්නේ නැහැ. මොකද LLM එකක් හරියට හදන්න ඕන නම් මහා පරිමාණය තියන්න ඕනේ. ඉතින් අපි කරන්න බලන්නේ LLMs වලට තියෙන alternatives මොනවද කියලා. දැන් මම හිතන්නේ ඒක ගැන කතාවත් අඩුයි. හැබැයි දැන් මම මේ ඩීප් මයින්ඩ් එකේ CEO දෙන කතාවක් හිතුවා. ඒගොල්ලන් LLMs හදනවා. හැබැයි LLMs වලට අමතරව alternatives උත් බලනවා. මොකද අපි දැන් දන්නවා LLMs වල ශක්ති පරිභෝජනය වැඩි. LLMs වලට කරන්න බැරි දේවල් ගොඩක් තියෙනවා. ඒවට අනිවාර්යෙන් alternatives හොයා ගන්න ඕනේ. ඉතින් ඒක තමයි එකක්. ඒක දැන් මම දන්නවා startups ගොඩක් ඒව fail වුණා. මොකද ඒගොල්ලන් හැදුවේ අනිත් අය හදපු AI උඩින් wrappers වගේ තමයි හැදුවේ. උදාහරණයක් වශයෙන් අපි startup එකක් කරන්න වැඩක් නැහැ මේ GPT එකේ ඊළඟ version එකේ ඒ feature එක තියෙනවා නම්. ඉතින් අපි බලන්න ඕනේ මේ අනිත් අයට කරන්න බැරි දේවල් මොනවද කියලා. එහෙම AI කරන්න ඕන නම් අපිට අනිවාර්යෙන් මේ skills දෙකක් ඕන වෙනවා. එක skill එකක් තමයි core AI හදන්න. ඒ කියන්නේ foundation එකේ තියෙන AI හදන්න මොන skills ඕනද කියලා. දැන් AI කියන්නේ තනිකරම ගණිතය. මේ අපි දැන් computer science, computer engineering graduates ලා ගොඩක් ලංකාවේ ඉන්නවා. ගණිත graduates ලා ගොඩක් අඩුයි. අනිත් ප්‍රශ්නේ A level එකක් ගත්තොත් A level එකේ ගණන් වලින් වැඩිම ලකුණු ගන්න අය ඉස්සෙල්ලාම කරන්නේ engineering, දෙවෙනි කරන්නේ IT, තුන්වෙනිට තමයි ගණන් නැත්තම් physics නැත්තම් ඒ වගේ එකක් කරන්නේ. ඉතින් අපි ඒක flip වෙන්න ඕනේ. දැන් ඉන්දියාව වගේ චීනය වගේ රටක් ගත්තොත් හොඳම ගණිත ස්ටුඩන්ට්ස් ගණිතය කරන්නේ. AI කරන්න බෑ ගණිතය නැතුව. ඒක එකක්. අනිත් එක දැන් ඔය AI එකක් හදුවට පස්සේ ඒක යොදා ගන්න ඕනේ hard problem solve කරන්න. නිකන් TikTok වීඩියෝ හදන්න නෙමෙයි. TikTok වීඩියෝ හදන එකත් හොඳයි. හැබැයි අත්‍තරම hard problem solve කරන්න තමයි AI ඕනේ. දැන් උදාහරණයක් වශයෙන් ඖෂධ හොයා ගැනීම, smart agriculture, ඔය climate problems වලට climate technology solutions. ඒ වගේ ප්‍රශ්න වලට AI යොදන්න නම් ඒ ශාස්ත්‍ර වලත් මොකක් හරි expertise එකක් තියෙන්න ඕනේ. ඉතින් අපි ඒ pure AI සහ applied AI දෙකම කරන්න ඕනේ මේ සමාන්තරව. ඉතින් ඒක තමයි මගේ අදහස්.
බොහොම ස්තුතියි. මේ අර ස්පෙෂලි AI පාවිච්චි කරන්නේ TikTok හදන විතරක් නෙමෙයි කියන්නේ. මොකද මම තාමත් දැකලා තියෙනවා ලංකාවට තාම AI කියව ගමන් හිතෙන්නේ ඇත්තටම LLM වලින් පාවිච්චි කරලා content create එකයි. ඒට එහා ලොකු දෙයක් AI කියන එක තාම කට්ටිය දන්නේ නැහැ. ඊට අමතරව මම හිතන්නේ points දෙකක් මම ඒකේ ගන්නම්. අපි කවුරු දෙමාපිය කවුරු අහන් ඉන්නවා නම් මේක මගේ experience එකකුත් ඇත්තටම මට A level ලකුණු තිබ්බට පස්සේ මටත් option එක තිබ්බා mathematics කරනවද engineering කරනවද කියලා. ඒ වුණාට ඒ මොහොතේ මට දැනුමක් තිබ්බේ නැහැ. මම engineering කරා. ඉතින් එක පැත්තකින් ගත්ත point එක හදි රැකියා අවශ්‍යතාවය අනුව ඒ අදාළ මොඩියුල් එක පික් කරගන්න එක. අනිත් එක entrepreneur කෙනෙක් ඉන්නවා නම් මොන වගේ business එකද invest කරන්න ඕන කියන එක niche market එක identify කරගන්න එක. ඒක තව වැදගත් එකක්. ඉතින් අපේ ඒක අරමුණක් තමයි අපි අතන entrepreneur section එකේ මේ niche market එක identify කරලා ඒක කොහොමද opportunity එක build කරගන්න කියන එක අපි support කරනවා අපේ entrepreneurship space එකේ. So thank you for bringing that also. එතනින් පස්සේ අපිට යන්න පුළුවන් අපේ අහන් ඉන්න කාගේ හරි question එකක් තියෙනවා නම් අපිට round එකට යන්න පුළුවන්. මොකද මුකුත් හරි ප්‍රශ්න වැරදි ප්‍රශ්න එහෙම මුකුත් නැහැ. කැමති ප්‍රශ්නයක් තියෙනවා නම් අහන්න පුළුවන්. ප්‍රශ්න දෙකකට හරි එකකට හරි අපිට අවස්ථාව දෙන්න පුළුවන්. හිටගෙන ඉන්න අයගේ ප්‍රශ්නයක් තියෙනවද? නැත්නම් okay. I'll go for additional question before wrapping up. We have a few more time. So question goes to Rohan. So this is about responsibility of using AI and misinformation. Even in recent contexts, in political point of view also, there are a lot of misinterpretations regarding AI-generated content. I know some of the platforms, they have automatically identified whether it is AI-generated content or not. I have seen LinkedIn automatically does it. And a lot of people are moving to social media, and even in the business context, people have trust issues using AI because of this misinterpretation. And you can call it hallucination also. With all these issues coming up right now, how either individual or a corporate should prepare for this misinterpretation of AI tools?
I think great. Like, I am very liberal about some of these stuff. So I want to give you the heads up on it. Because I remember when I was working for Google, and a funny story is that I was taken to CID, and for 6 hours I was asked questions as to why this particular video is on YouTube. You can imagine what the video was, right? So I think most of the time what we are doing is that we are laying a foundation and creating opportunities, and it really depends on the value system of individuals. I mean, even here, all of us will have very different value system and different standards we maintain about morality. And unfortunately, that is not unified. And what usually happens is that technology progresses so fast, and then something happens, and everybody is very conscious. And then the tightening of the governance and things like that happen. And I think good news we are seeing with AI is that today there's a lot of organizations who have responsible AI policies. I think European Union has a AI, policy about these things. So a lot of these things will come. Now, one would argue and say the moment we start putting regulation and control, it hinders innovation, it hinders progress of technology. But unfortunately, I think it's a necessary evil. I mean, I remember Mark Zuckerberg went to the Senate hearing in US, and he was asked, and he actually indicated that he feels Facebook should be regulated, right, in that Senate hearing. Because the reason is he felt that it is now have come to this place where there's a lot of violence and all these different things are happening. So I think AI will also go through this, and I think I echo back the first answer Nuwan gave about revolution. We really don't know what the outcome would be at the moment. It's a bit too early. Right now, it's a little bit way advanced, and people and the leadership position, and especially all these people who are responsible for making, some kind of policies and all of that are catching up. Good news about Sri Lanka is that I think our Data Protection Act is already in place, which is fantastic. I think it's a really progressive one, and I think that really helps. But I think there's a conversation about AI policy as well. I think these things need to happen. I think there's always this balance between too much control will kill progress, but too little will create a lot more damage. So where's the balance? Luckily, I'm not in any of those committees.
So I'll put the next question to Nuwan. Again, if you can explain this for the wider community regarding vibe coding and how vibe coding can be impactful for the younger crowd. So one good use case I have seen in my organization, I mentioned this yesterday also. So there was an employee who has no idea about programming. And what he did was he saw a problem, and he identified and he used Firebase and prompted it, and he built the solution. So for the digital team, when we receive it, it's actually a workable prototype. And that's how the vibe coding, then after that we decentralize that capability, like for the wider community, okay, this is how you can use it. So that's a good part of vibe coding. And if you can, since we have a larger community online joining as well, explain what vibe coding means, because sometimes people don't know what that means. At the same time, what are the pros and cons, and how organization and individuals can make the benefit out of it?
Yeah. Yeah. So I'll come to that in a kind of a oblique way. Whenever a question a lot of computer science students ask me is that what technology should they learn, right? And so I tell them like, hey, don't worry about technology. Go and find problems that you're really passionate about solving, related to what both of you were talking about with respect to entrepreneurship. So I think from looking at it from a high level, what technologies like whiteboarding does, and also things like more sophisticated tools for more, even for kind of senior sophisticated programmers, there are a lot of very useful AI tools. What that actually enables them is to focus less on the technology and focus more on the problem, which is what people should actually care about. So I see a lot of negatives of AI, but one of the real positives is we are starting to see people who care about problems starting to solve the problems, as opposed to a bunch of people who think they really know the technology but don't really care about the problem. And however good you are at the technology, if you're not really committed to solving the problem, you're not going to solve the problem. So you wanted me to explain what white coding is to a to a broad audience. Effectively, what it does is we control computers with computer language. What it actually has done is it has created a natural language interface with the computer, which means now we can program computers in our own language. So rather than writing 10,000 lines of code in C++ or Python or Java or something, we can describe the problem like, hey, I want to build an e-commerce app. This is what my database looks like. This is how I want customers to see the different products. This is what I want to optimize. I want to optimize for the amount of time these customers are spending on my website. I want them to find the things that they want as soon as possible. So you can describe all of those things in English or Sinhala or whatever, natural language. And then the AI will generate the 10,000 lines of code. So one caveat I want to add is AI is not at a point where you get a e-commerce website which is kind of foolproof. Usually at the moment someone which needs to go in and sanity check it, but I think we are not far from the point where that sanity checking can also be done by AI, and as a result you get quite a stable information system where the error rate, you can't get zero error, but you can get to a point where the error is actually lower than what you would get if a human developer developed it. So that's what white coding is. I think it has democratized coding, really.
Thank you, Nuwan. We have a question, I think.
Yeah, thank you, EDEX, to arrange this kind of a wonderful meetings and knowledge sharing. It's kind of a brainstorming things. So basically, this kind of AI is a generalized now. Even we are talking about these people who are in the mathematics, who are having a mathematics knowledge and scientific knowledge, they can maximize this AI generation code. Rather than that, if anyone wanted to start this using AI, in the point of view, say, starting the business or starting entrepreneurships or advertisements or whatever it is, what is the starting point to start this? What are the source codes are available? The initial steps need to be identified. So even we know the AI is available, even we don't know what mean by prompt. If you don't know the real prompt creating is giving a garbage. It's like garbage input, garbage output. So we have to get a real idea what is the starting point, what kind of things need to be taken in outside, what kind of a knowledge we to learn before using. So I'll ask from your gentlemen to give us some kind of ideas to start this process, even though I'm a commerce guy or accounting guy or other people. So how is the starting point?
I will answer. I'm going to say things people are going to dislike, right? One is I think prompt engineering is overrated. I think it's becoming less and less relevant in this year. It's going to probably die, right? Because the technology has now caught up, right? The second one is, if you go to, in the Microsoft world, in the Copilot, they have launched an agent called, I think, Analyst or something like that. I think even Google. I think it was you who gave me the example, right? The Kadavata thing, was it you? I think he has a great example. I think this is where I connect back to what my other fellow panelists say. You are only limited by what you are thinking, right? So this is why creativity, or the word I use is imagination. Imagination is probably the biggest thing that people could have right now, because I would like Dehan to explain the story about this Kadavata thing, because what he did was he just put in some information to the analyst agent and said, I am starting a, it's a gym, right? It's a gym for fitness gym in Kadavata, and my monthly rental or something is this much. Tell me the business plan and tell me it's viable or not. And this particular agent just did the entire analysis, and came back and gave it. Now, it's not accurate, maybe not right, but then you have a starting point there. Then you can build on it. The areas you are not sure, you can ask for more clarification. Explain to me this, give me more details around this. Then you use your judgment, your knowledge, and now suddenly what a business plan would have taken 3 months, within one day, less than a couple of hours, you probably can build that. And I think that's the power. So that's why I think it's not the tool. I think the individuals, we need to know, and we need to develop ourselves to ask the questions, continuously stay hungry and probe, so that you are kind of getting into, getting the harvesting the power behind the system that is there, which is called AI. Yeah.
I'll just add one thing to that is, so a lot of people ask me this question, how do I get started with AI? And I tell them 3 things. First is they have to really understand what are the problems involved in their business. Second is they need people to work with the AI. So sometimes that can be just one person, but they need at least one person to be that interface with the AI. And the third one is they need data. That has kind of gone away because AI can now kind of find that data. But the main thing is that first one, I find that a lot of people come to AI without a problem. AI is a solution, but you have to have a problem to be solved. So if you don't have a deep idea of what the problems in your business are, then AI is kind of completely useless. So if you're not at a place where you don't really know, okay, what problem do I want the AI to solve, then you probably don't know enough about your business to use the AI to solve anything. Yeah.
So yeah, just to add into it, so I think both Rohan and Nuwan spoken about this. I think this is a quote from Einstein. He has said, if I have only 1 hour to save the world, 55 minutes, I'm going to think about the problem. 5 minutes, I'm going to look at the solution. Same thing, like if you start with AI, and if you ask certain questions, okay, like this, it will give you something. But then, but if you don't know what you want to really get out of it, and if you just say a very vague problem, then you might always get a vague answer for that. It's like, you go to a doctor and, give certain vague symptoms, he'll figure out a different sort of a disease that you might have. But if you tell exactly, okay, this is what the kind of the problem that I am having, without saying, okay, I am suspecting this is what the problem is, he said, okay, I will, this could be this. At least, it will get some sort of you get into that, I think. Through that will be the eye-open, I think. From that point onwards, you have to think.
Hi. First of all, I want to thank you for the organizing committee regarding this inviting right people for the right discussion, and it is a very insightful discussion. Rather than a question, I have a suggestion. There were 2 things that discussed. One is the job market for the data analysts and the AI is rapidly increasing in Sri Lanka. Second one is what AI is used in the country around the island. since I'm also a person who is in the tech industry with this AI and data analysis for a long term, I have a suggestion for the panel to give the insights. Still, we are in the very early stage of this data analysis. Still, data in Sri Lanka has not been analyzed and used properly. According to me, we only analyze 5% of data, only 90% of data in the government and the other organizations. We are, as IT industry, we are using data analytics, we are using AI power to the business and our own projects. But still, the country as a full digital economy wise, we have to utilize the data properly and we have to be digitalized, and we are still in the starting point. That means, according to the job market, still we are in the starting point because there are so many areas that we need to improve this in the country-wise, and there were so many discussions. I think Rohan also know, we had several discussions with several people. Still, it's under the discussion. So if you can give the insights for the people, because we have to educate the society, educate the political power, educate the non-educated people with the AI and digital. That means IT literacy-wise, our country is still in the low percentage. So what are your insights as a suggestion for this panel? Because I think before the wind up, if you can give the insight for that, how to improve this as a country-wise, that would be a nice discussion. Thank you.
So you mentioned that only 5% of data is, so I think a lot of that 5% is financial data, because if you're a registered company and you don't have accounts, you go to jail, right? So it's the bare minimum that people need to do, people do, everything else is nothing. I actually know of a supermarket chain where they don't have data of the sales of the stuff in their supermarket, which is kind of ridiculous. So where do we start? So I think to some extent this needs to be realized from the inside. Most businesses are kind of private businesses, and private individuals control them, and they need to realize that, okay, data is something valuable to them. I can tell you about my attempts to kind of convince people of this. Usually what I do is I start with that 5% that they already have. Okay, you have data about your financial side of your business. Okay, so what if we do that to all the other parts of the business? And then what that does, it kind of creates visibility. Once it creates visibility, you see places where you can optimize. Okay, and then they kind of get it. Okay, now our bottom line is actually affected. So for the first thing I try to do is to try and connect general data, let's say just like some random numbers, with data that the organization actually care about, which is almost always profit and loss, financial data. So for me, like that's the path to the CEO's heart, basically, like through the financial records, right? So I think from the point of view of people who are the data practitioners, from people from my side, like I think one problem that we have is we are like reluctant to do that. We know about AI, we know about statistics, we know about like various distributions. We don't really understand, okay, how we can convince people about our own field. We kind of think that, okay, they need to accept it kind of directly. So I feel like maybe there needs to be education on the data scientist side as well to sell their profession like a little bit more. Everyone knows why a doctor is valuable, because if you don't go to a doctor, you die. People don't really understand why a data scientist is valuable. I personally think that maybe between 50 and 75% of profits are like just left on the table because we don't really apply data to it.
I'll take it out.
Yeah, I think, so I'm actually thinking like, so what I think I do agree with Nuwan on that. And so one other thing, in fact, I believe it's about the culture. Like, do we really have this all data-driven mindset across state, across corporate, like across boards, across like, all of that? Because in all these layers, if we have that whole data-driven culture, And there are like data scientists and analysts, they'll be able to figure out the data sources. The data is there somewhere down the line. So I think it's not only for the corporate, I mean, not only for the state, even like corporates. I think some time back, I actually got involved with one of the training session for banking staff of a particular bank that has one of the credit card, which is like, I mean, one of the most used, like sort of a credit card. And then the question I asked from these branch level people is that, I asked that, what is the extent of the data that you have about your people? They said like, we have, their names, numbers, transactions, all of that. I said like, no, the biggest thing what you have is that you know what technically, I mean, what you might not have that gravity of, through like, through privacy and so many other things, you might not have the gravity of accessing it to it, but technically you know what exactly this particular person prefer to eat. And you have that gravity of data. But the problem is, you don't really think that you have that, and you don't really use it. So it's a matter, I mean, that is the same thinking, and this is like a branch level staff of a bank. So they don't really go into that extent. Same thing goes even to the state. Like when it comes to the decision makers might not go into that extent. It might be there on the top, the very top, that they want to be like digitized, data driven, all of that. But when it comes to the ground levels, you don't have that. People who has access to the data. So one department doesn't want to give that data set to the other department. And they keep that as a treasure. So I think this mindset has to break. After that, I think, we'll become more, we'll have some more fruitful results.
I'll ask the question in two ways, private sector and public sector, the government sector. And then I will say the underlying skill set, which is, I think that's the three things you were touching on. I think the private sector is a matter of time because it's becoming more and more glaringly obvious the benefit of doing data-driven, data capability, etc. in organization. So private sector is going to adopt it. And I think there's more and more people are doing it. Some of them are doing it well. Some of them don't know what the hell, sorry, my language, what they are doing, but they will get there, right? So that's a private sector. I think it's a matter of time. I'll give an example. 10 years ago, we wanted to digitize. So when I was at Google, we had a project called Art Project. The idea was we will have the kind of a street view, kind of a walkthroughs of the museum so that people could virtually see the artifacts and our history, our culture of Sri Lanka. The curator, main curator, someone said, we are not going to allow Google to do this because you are going to steal our whatever. That was the feedback 20 years ago. So government and the public sector is a lot more challenging because people need to have the aptitude, the attitude, and the kind of a understanding that this is meaningful, this is important. That I don't think none of us have a really good answer because obviously I'm not trying to cop out, but that's heavily dependent on how the government sets policies around this, right? And in Sri Lanka, because most of our big businesses are owned by the government, the big data set is with them. Now, how that is going to get solved, I have no idea, right? Now, when it comes to skill set, like the more attractive roles of data is the AI is the data scientists. Like, the guys get the glory. They're the ones who are featured on covers and all that. But there is equally important roles like the data engineers, platform engineers, the data quality parts. And there are so many other components that have to put in place before you actually get into the data scientists to build models and all that happens. And I think that, to be honest, even for us, our biggest challenges have been that talent isn't even as widely available as data scientists today. But whenever we go to a client or customer and talk about AI, when we talk about, okay, you want to do AI, how is your data strategy? They say, what do you mean? They don't have that. And I think skill set, I think there's going to be a huge demand for data engineers and platform engineers. And I think that's going to be really interesting. That's probably the way I will break your question in and answer you. Yeah?
Thanks for the questions. Very valuable 2 questions. I'll add 2 scenarios like with the Khadav, the gym. So this individual actually, he didn't have any idea. And also now, because now prompt engineering is officially taken off, like you can put from any language. I සිංහලෙන් දාලා තියෙනවා මම බැංකුවෙන් ලෝන් එකක් ගත්තොත් දැන් multiple models came up මම බැංකුවෙන් මෙහෙම ලෝන් එකක් ගත්තොත් මම business එක මේවා කරොත් මට මොකද්ද වෙන්නේ So like previously entrepreneurs, they didn't know how to evaluate their risk. Now the risk also, like they had to learn in a hard day. Kerala kelawunata pastamai dan business secure. Now that has been taken off. AI is doing the simulation for you, and AI will give you, okay, these are the potential risks for you. Then the other one, in terms of the unavailable data, I'm someone who completely believes in crowdsourcing data, and in that case, the effort you are putting into to build crowdsourcing data, it's magnificent. I'll tell one example how we used during the flood situation. We want to look at our factory premises, what are the potential threats going to happen to our factory premises. We used Nuwan's data set. We connected and we look at how the flood levels are going on, and we predicted and we made necessary risk mitigations by looking at that crowdsourced data. So there are a lot of, I think I have seen you are collecting all the gazettes also. Like those are the ways you can do crowdsourcing if the government or any other organization doesn't have data. The individuals can start on individual crowdsourcing. That's another way to solve that problem. So with that, we can go for the final round, just a rapid fire one question. So there are a lot of young people listen to this. So what is your final advice if you want to become a genius in AI area? What do you have to do?
Okay, so I'll answer that in advertising. I just have to say 2 taglines. Think different and just do it.
Yeah, I already mentioned my answer, which is do stuff which the AI can't do, which is being creative. And just to add, by creative, I'm not talking about kind of dancing or paintings or music or something. Those fields have always been creative. What I mean is like, if we have a diabetes epidemic in Sri Lanka, if we are to solve that, we need to do medicine in a creative way. We will get a lot more disasters like Ditwa. If we are to kind of insulate ourselves from that, we need to do climate science and things in a creative way. And I don't think we have realized this, but our tech industry is in a precarious situation because of the effect of AI, which hasn't really hit us as yet. And if we are to recover from that or kind of defend ourselves against from that, we need to do technology also creative way. So things like medicine, climate science, technology, agriculture, things which are not really considered creative, we need to be creative if we are to survive.
My answer is, for a young person who's listening to about AI, don't try to predict what's going to happen, but please try to be the first to experiment, learn, and adopt it. Number 1. Number 2, in order for you to adapt, you need to keep a level of hunger about how do I learn something, how do I evolve myself, etc. Connecting back to what Nuwan was saying. Nuwan is saying that there's a concept called first principle thinking. First principle thinking is about having a problem without trying to look at it for how do we make it 5%, 10% better? How do we make it 5x, 10x better with all the current technology and capability we have? And what does it take for us? And I think if you develop these 3 things, I think you're going to be unbeatable. And don't worry, AI is rapidly growing. It's very confusing. Just have faith and stay in it.
Thanks, everyone. Again, thanks, Seninda, Nuwan, and Rohan for your valuable inputs, and thanks for the engagement for the participant as well. And this is the last session for the day 3, and we're going to start tomorrow, last day of EDEX. And we have 3 other sessions planned for tomorrow. And let's connect tomorrow. Thanks, everyone.